Welcome to Bamfordrose and another question of the week. This week's question comes from someone phoning up asking if they can have a £229 service, which I guess stems from this posting taken from a Facebook group. So this is a question that I get asked lots of times, where someone feels that they don't necessarily want or need a full service, but they'd just like us to change the oil and filter, followed by the classic comment of, can you just have a look round it? Can you just have a look round it and change the oil and filter is clearly not a service. If someone wanted us to just change the oil and filter, then I wouldn't stamp the service book. The final sentence on this post said, what could possibly be the downside? In a moment, I'll give you a good example of a downside of not having a proper service. And a proper service would mean the inspection report. Crucially, the inspection report is going to identify anything that needs fixing immediately, or it's going to identify anything which could be done preventative maintenance to either stop a breakdown or stop something more serious from happening. At service time, it's that inspection that is the most critical. You know, changing the fluids is by and largely irrelevant. Not irrelevant in terms of you don't need to do it. It's just an action that needs to take place either annually or on mileage, and the act of changing those fluids doesn't constitute a service. Before I show a tangible downside, let's just go through these numbers. It says some independent is doing the oil and filter change and a safety check for £229 inclusive of VAT, but he can get for £400, which is probably excluding VAT because it doesn't specifically state it, the AM garage, presumably that's franchise, will do an oil and filter. So at the AM dealer, then 12 litres of oil is going to be approximately £100. The necessary filters, seals and consumables probably all going to come in at about 50 quid. Put the car on the ramp, do the job, take it off the ramp. It's probably going to be about an hour and a half. Your average dealer is going to be about £150 per hour labour charge. So £250 the labour, £150 the parts and consumables. There's your 400 quid, sounds about right. So the £229 from the independent garage is quoted as being inclusive VAT. So strip that away and that leaves £190. We know that we have £150 on parts and materials. That leaves £40 to do about an hour and a half's work. Now, considering the cost of doing business, rents, rates, wages, taxes, and just charging £40 for that is certainly suspicious. They have to make their money from somewhere, and £40 for the labour isn't going to do that. So you'd have to think that maybe the oil wasn't the correct grade or the parts used were aftermarket. Also, they're going to do a safety check. What exactly that is, I really don't know. Does that just mean wheel nuts are torqued up? Does that just mean visual check of all suspension bolts and fixings are present and correct? Now, going on from just a fluid change to an inspection and a full-blown service, obviously we're starting to cover some of the bases there that is included in an inspection report. Now, whether the garage makes enough money out of that transaction is irrelevant for our discussion, other than a question mark on the materials used. Are they factory grade? Is the oil the Castrol, the Mobil? And the point of this week's question of the week is concerned with that final sentence on this question. What could be a downside? Well, scrimping on a really detailed service inspection report is the downside. The plus side is that someone might get a stamp in the book for a very low price. That might look good come resale, but that scrimping is inevitably going to cost more in the long run and is only doing the car a disservice. Here's a beautiful V12 Vantage S that recently came in here for service. This car had its check emissions light on when it came in for service, and for your £229 service, for your £40 labour, when you've taken your materials out of that cost, you might get a fault code delete, and if the code didn't immediately come back, well, they put it down to an Aston glitch, your typical illumination of the check engine light, and think no more of it. Obviously, coming to Bamfordrose for a service, then the illumination of that light got some critical concern. Yes, it was a code in the background for your typical lean running engine or lambda sensors which might not be behaving properly, but given the right drive cycle, and this car would flag a P0420, which is catalyst efficiency code. Here's a picture of the V12 exhaust manifold, and as we well know on this channel, You see the distance between the exhaust port and the catalyst, and any misfire that occurs can break that ceramic catalyst up, and because of the big valve overlap, the engine ingests that debris. That's why no matter the V12, a primary cat delete is a really good preventative maintenance action. So this car was continually running lean. Now what that means is that it's got some unmetered air, some additional air coming into the engine that's after the mass airflow sensor, so the engine management system is pretty blind to this cause of extra airflow, which is normal. That can happen, and there are fueling adaptations which put in extra fuel to return it to being back to lambda 1 or 14.5 to 1 air fuel ratio. That adaptation process is entirely normal and what's going to happen on most cars out there. No car is going to run without any adaptations. This car was running on the limit of what the authority of those adaptations were, meaning that the engine management system has got to the limit of how much additional fuel volume it can put in to try and return the air fuel ratio back to 14.5 or lambda back to 1.0. And it was pinging a stuck lean code, which most people would put down to your normal Aston sensitive onboard diagnostic calibration and the normal regular illumination of the check engine light. But not here. That is an error and we need to get to the bottom of that. What happened on this car, probably from a previous car park bump, because it had evidence of having a new bumper and new wheel arch liner fitted, is that the clean air tube coming off the airbox, which houses the mass airflow sensor, had got a crack in it. Probably legacy from that little car park knock. So there was an amount of unmetered air being sucked in after the mass airflow sensor, and that was causing the engine management system to put in additional fuel, but it could only put in fuel to the clamp limit, and then when it reached the clamp limit, that's where the fault code was being triggered. That led to the catalyst efficiency fault code being triggered, and at point of service we unscrewed the lambda sensor, put a video imaging camera down, and here you can see some rather alarming signs. That undulation in the surface of the catalyst matrix that you can see through the lambda sensor is actually a big crater. So there's a big volume of cat that's already missing. There are sections of the matrix that have rolled over and it's melted. So although the car drives fine, it just illuminates its check engine light every now and again. There's a serious problem hiding underneath the surface, which your £229 service is never going to find. For the £40 labour that the garage was earning, I doubt they've got AMDS. So they'd have plugged a generic fault code checker in, just reset the code. It didn't come back, they'd probably be happy to send that car on its way. Rather than with the correct equipment, plug in, look at all the fueling adaptations, look at how it's running real time, to be able to understand that it's not just a glitch, it's a fault. And then the service inspection, that analysis goes searching for that fault. So as in the case of this beautiful V12 Vantage, let's just look at the picture of its engine there. The downside of having that £229 service or just a £400 dealer fluid swap is that beautiful engine would have been wrecked and it would have to have been taken out of the car and fixed. And a problem that was detected as part of service ends up not being detected, and you've got a 20 grand engine repair bill. Far too often, whether it's a motorsport outlet of dubious quality or a sales garage trying to break into the repair and service world, their only angle into the market is a race to the bottom on price. But servicing your Aston should be a race to the top on quality. If it's not you as the current owner, then it's going to be the next owner of the car that will ultimately pay the price of that race to the bottom servicing. Hope you enjoyed that question of the week. If you like our content, then subscribe to our channel, click us a like, and let's have your comments on servicing your Aston. We'll see you on the next question of the week.